Believe it or not, but the June 28th primary, early voting starts Thursday, May 19th. Look at the calendar. That's just in a couple of days here. So what do you think is going to happen with the election? All kinds of choices you're going to have. Of course, everybody's focused on governor. You've also got, on the Democrat side, a whole host of names vying for Secretary of State. You've got the comptroller race, the treasurer's race. But some of the constitutional offices do have multiple individuals for the party looking to get the nomination. For instance, the Democratic Party, you've got Governor J.B. Pritzker facing Beverly Miles, a Chicago area nurse and U.S. Army veteran. Now, the money situation there, of course, is way disproportionate. But on the Republican side, you've got 6 Republicans vying to take on Pritzker in November. But on the Republican side of the Attorney General as well, you've got 3 choices, one being Steve Kim, another being Attorney Thomas DeVore, and a third being Dave Shestokas, who we'll talk with here in a moment. But before we get to Dave, I do want to highlight some of the issues you may be hearing about as Republican candidates get the question of what should happen with the investigation into the LaSalle Veterans Home COVID-19 outbreak. Now, just for some context and some historical perspective, the previous governor, Republican Governor Bruce Rauner, he was investigated by then Attorney General Lisa Madigan over the fatal Legionnaire's disease outbreak that happened in 2015, killed around 13 residents there in Quincy, and that investigation lasted all throughout the 2018 election season. Now, millions of dollars being paid out to the family members of those lost in Quincy, but ultimately, no charges were coming out of that criminal investigation that Attorney General Lisa Madigan handed over to now incumbent Attorney General Kwame Raoul, but it was talked about all throughout the 2018 election. Now, fast forward to 2020 in November, you have a COVID-19 outbreak that occurred at the LaSalle Veterans Home in Illinois, where 36 people died. And last year, we got an Inspector General report that just focused on the Department of Veterans Affairs. And then earlier this month, we get a report from the Auditor General that ultimately showed the Pritzker administration didn't take serious the situation at the LaSalle Veterans Home, again, where 36 people were killed. So when that report came out, I asked the governor specifically if he was going to be taking responsibility for the Auditor General saying that his administration dropped the ball. And here's what the governor's reaction was when I asked him that question earlier this month.
Look, I'm the governor of the state of Illinois, so I understand that these agencies are my responsibility. My appointments to lead those agencies are my responsibility. The policies and procedures are done by the agency themselves. The management of the individuals who work at a particular veterans home are handled by people at those homes. And so we wanted to make sure there's no way that you can see across 50,000+ people in your government as governor exactly what everybody's doing. That's why we focused this effort on finding out what had happened at the agency.
So again, that's Governor J.B. Pritzker earlier this month. And then last week, you had Richard Irvin, one of the Republican candidates for governor, talking about how this is possible criminal negligence at the LaSalle Veterans Home. So last week, the governor was asked about that suggestion that there be some kind of investigation into his handling of the LaSalle Veterans Home COVID-19 outbreak. And here's what the governor had to say last week.
I think it's incredibly hypocritical for people who say they don't think we should have ever had any mandates at all related to mitigations of COVID-19. We were trying to keep people healthy and safe in the worst moments of this worldwide pandemic, deadly pandemic. And it was necessary for us to ask people to do the right thing.
So also last week, you had Republican candidate for Attorney General Steve Kim say that it was an egregious failure on part of the Pritzker administration, and an investigation must happen. Anything less than full accountability, he said, for those responsible is a disservice to the memory of veterans. I got a statement from Attorney Thomas DeVore. He's also running as a Republican. He said it was apparent early on that elderly citizens with congregate facilities were the most at risk, and they knew that in early 2020. However, the Department of Health, he said, was more focused on closing small businesses and isolating school children, all of which wreaked havoc on the economy, as well as harmed our children's mental health and overall development. He says all this suffering by our people was certainly the result of nonfeasance and misfeasance by many public officials, DeVore said. But whether their actions or inactions rise to the level of criminality would require careful consideration of government actors far beyond a handful of officials within the Department of Public Health. He said that these public officials are equally as responsible as the governor and his agencies for all the tragedies and the loss suffered by the people. So again, you've got a Republican primary set for June 28th. Early voting is for that primary is May 19th. That's coming up. So let's hear now from another Republican Attorney General candidate to get his reaction to whether there should be an investigation into the LaSalle Veterans Home. David Shestokas joins us here on WMAY. Dave, thanks for taking time. Should there be an investigation into the handling of the LaSalle Veterans Home COVID outbreak? Good morning.
Good morning, Greg. It's great to be with you and your audience this morning. In terms of whether there should be an investigation, of course there should be an investigation. The question is who should conduct it. As you and I were speaking yesterday, the issue, you mentioned in passing about Lisa Madigan having investigated the other veteran home's death. And the fact is that you have also an interesting quote from the governor regarding the fact that he can't look after 50,000 employees. And I would suggest to you that this was a failure of the government following the law, because, of course, we go back to the beginning of the pandemic, and the situation was the Illinois Emergency Management Act has always indicated that the governor only had 30 days to exercise extraordinary powers and then have the participation of the legislature to deal with these kind of matters. And, of course, what happened on that is just Raul issued a new opinion from the Attorney General's office indicating that the governor could issue successive orders, which essentially cut out the legislature's participation. And the legislature's participation would have been crucial in circumstances like this. There are committees in both the House and the Senate regarding Veterans Affairs and oversight of these matters. Had they been participants in the management of the pandemic, then the 9 of the first 13 days in November of 20, there was notice about all the problems that were going on in the nursing home, and the fact is that, of course, the governor's administration did not respond to those. Had those notices been going also to the committees in the House and the Senate, and the governor and the Attorney General have been following the law, it's likely this and any number of other ramifications from what we had was this one-man tyrannical rule that was blessed by the Attorney General, and then we had the abdication of the legislature where they failed to participate and exercise their authority under the Illinois Constitution. Any number of these things might very well have been avoided because notice would have been given to the legislature. The legislature could have got to the executive agencies. This is a failure, a systemic failure, but not only was it a systemic failure, it was a failure of the Attorney General to require that the governor follow the law. And this is, I think it goes back deeper than how this is really, really horrific. And we feel and pray for the families who lost their 36 loved ones and the other 180 some odd people that had gotten sick under this circumstance. But they got sick. This all happened because the government didn't follow the law. And the government didn't follow the law because the Attorney General issued a political opinion of the Attorney General's office rather than a legal opinion.
Dave Shestokas joins us here on WMAY with Springfield's Morning News. He's one of three Republicans vying to take on incumbent Democratic Attorney General Kwame Raoul. I was able to contact the Democrats' campaign, but they did not respond to a request for comment when contacted. So, Dave, I'm sure we're going to talk again as the months progress towards June 28th. Early voting is this Thursday. So for those of our listeners who aren't familiar with you, in these final few moments we've got, go ahead and lay out there who is Dave Shestokas and why should they get your vote in the Republican primary?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the major issues is, in fact, crime across the state. And I am a former assistant state's attorney in Cook County back in the day when we actually used to prosecute people. I handled more than 400 felony matters and investigations. I was involved in more than 10,000 misdemeanors. We have already identified Christopher Fancook as who would be our chief of criminal prosecutions, former Illinois State Police Lieutenant Colonel Terry Lemming, that will be our head of investigations. So we're going to bring in top talent on this that I believe neither of my opponents has the ability to do, because neither has any experience in the criminal justice arena from the prosecution side. And the next case either Mr. Kim or Mr. DeVore prosecutes will in fact be their first. And it's very important, I believe, that somebody have that kind of experience to understand what the assistant attorneys general are doing in terms of monitoring the failures of people like Kim Foxx and Eric Reinhart and other prosecutors around the state to protect the people of the state of Illinois. We're going to do that, and we're going to be in a situation where we can do that on the very first day. I'm also the lawyer for the Illinois Conservative Union. We filed a lawsuit against the Board of Elections, just asking simply that they follow the National Voter Registration Act in terms of providing the data to make sure that they're keeping the voter rolls clean. The Attorney General essentially said that the Board of Elections doesn't have to follow the law, even though it's been decided in 12 other states. So we're involved in that. I did file a suit on behalf of a church in Morris, Illinois, in Grundy County, and and assisted that church in getting open during the pandemic. One of the things that Mr. Raoul did was take several churches all the way to the United States Supreme Court, essentially arguing that churches are not essential. So I've got experience in the criminal justice area. I've got experience in fighting for religious liberty. And beyond that, I've also been involved in election matters via the ICU and a variety of other circumstances. So I've got a broad base of experience, much broader than either of my opponents when it comes to managing criminal matters, election matters, religious liberty matters, and essentially getting the Attorney General off the backs of the people and put the Attorney General's office in the place to prosecute crimes and do things to protect the people. And it's David Shestokas, and it's Dave, the number 4 AG. That is Dave4AG.com. People can learn about me, or they can go to Shestokas.com, which is SHESTOKAS.com, and find the over 200 articles that I've written about the Constitution, the founding documents. I've been doing education on those matters for about 10 years. So we've got a broad base of experience. We're going to bring in top talent to assist in the administration of that office and do what we need to do to protect the people of Illinois.
Dave Shestokas here on WMAY. We'll have to connect again in the near future to talk a little bit more about nuance of what a role of the Attorney General really should be and helping combat corruption and helping combat crime. So I think those are conversations we'll have to have in the future. Greatly appreciate you taking the time with us this morning on the WMAY Morning News Feed. It is now